Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Julian. Pronouns are he, him, and I help lead the Pride community here at Checkout. Thank you so much for joining us here today and people on Zoom. Also, thank you for coming. Yeah, it's so good to see everybody in the office. I think we're going to be kind of saying the same thing for the next 3 weeks. It's like, oh, good to see you. Those meetings are so much more productive in person. And it's like, oh, I didn't recognize you, Tom. Your Zoom picture is so different. But no, it's truly great to see everybody in the offices. And yeah, thank you for taking the time of your busy schedules to be here. So why are we here? Well, it is Pride Month. And we've got lots of events going on, including today's little talk. I think before I introduce our lovely guest, I'll spend a couple of moments talking about what is Pride Month and kind of why are we celebrating. Well, this year, the theme of London Pride is Loud and Proud, celebrating 50 years of London Pride. The first Pride event in London was hosted on the 1st of July, 1972. And it wasn't a parade as we know it now. It was more of a protest. 2,000 people gathered in Hyde Park to protest against violence towards gay people. I think we can all agree that ever since then, the society, especially in our country, have progressed positively. We're in a good place today, but still bumps on the road that we've had to over the last 50 years to get here. Famously in 1988, Section 28 introduced by Margaret Thatcher's government that prohibited the promotion of gay people in local, promotion of homosexuality in local governments. That actually was not disbanded fully until 2003, which is crazy to think. Also, we've got the Trans Day of Remembrance, and we mark that during the Trans Visibility Week in November. And that is an opportunity for us to remember all of the trans people that are murdered because of transphobia. And it's quite a shocking statistic that in 2021, that was the year with the highest murder rate towards trans people that was recorded since the records began in 1999. So as much as the positive progress we've made, there is still so much more to do to protect our community. And then fast forward 2013, the legalization of gay marriage in England and Wales, a good year, a happy year for all of us. And now we're here, 2022, 50 years later. The Pride Parade is on the 2nd of July, the first one in 2 years after the pandemic. We're all excited, we're all happy, we're gonna celebrate everyone's differences. So without further ado, let's dive in. So why don't you all join me and the warm round of applause for our guest, Adele. Hi, Adele. How are you?
Hi there.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. For people that have not had the privilege to meet you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Checkout?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Adel, and I am part of the solution engineering team. I work mainly with strategic accounts at Checkout, and basically in charge of making sure that we have what customers need in terms of requirements, products. I've been here for over 3 years, so the reality of being back in the office is a bit different for me. Especially with like, who are all these people? They weren't here 2.5 years ago. So yeah, it's so nice to be back to the office. I mean, for me, we were just talking about it earlier. I've been coming here every day for the past year, so I haven't really been away for so long, but it's just so nice to see more people in the office.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, no, it is really, really good to see everybody back. Adele, I want to start by talking about your involvement in the community. So you've been involved in the community for a number of years, and there are some really amazing things that you managed to achieve. So I want to start talking about the LGBTQIA plus rights group that you set up called Alkaus in the Middle East. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit more about that, introduce it, and kind of give us maybe some of the things that has led you to create the group?
So for those who don't know, I grew up in Palestine. I'm Palestinian or Palestinian Israeli, and coming from a society where pretty much being gay is very much taboo and goes against everything that the culture promotes. Growing up, it was very difficult to find a circle or a frame that I would fit in. So at the age of 15, I left my parents' house and moved about 200 kilometers from the north of Israel to Jerusalem and started joining social groups. But these social groups were mainly for Jewish people and didn't really understand or find my place in the culture, given that I grew up in a different culture. In those groups, I also had the privilege to meet another Palestinian lady who was doing a small project within that organization to promote basically what the organization was doing in Arabic so that it gets to wider audience, but still it was not localized to our culture. So we started thinking about, what do we do in order to build a frame, a safe place for people like me in our own society. And that's how we decided to start Alkaus. So Alkaus started as a small group within the open house in Jerusalem. And then about 6 years later, we decided to separate it and make it its own organization on its own merit. And that is how the organization started. Today, if you look at the landscape in the Middle East, Alkaus is one of the big 5 organizations for LGBTQIA plus people in the Middle East, alongside others in Lebanon and in North Africa. Our work mainly revolves around support groups, whether that's finding a frame for young people who want to meet other people to basically get introduced into the community, and then to be able to talk about difficulties that they're facing, also be able to share their stories and network with other LGBTQIA people. The other thing that we work on is around school programs, where we basically built some of the educational programs for Palestinian schools within what we call the Green Line, which is the Israeli borders, and then some collaborations also in the West Bank. And lastly, we have a a support line, which is basically a line that parents and kids and people of all ages can call to get support if there is a life-threatening situation, or if they are confused, or if the parents don't know how to deal with finding out their son is gay or their daughter is lesbian, or any kind of situation that has to do with sexuality in the Palestinian society. They can call the support line, and one of the therapists that we have in the center will basically be there and have that continuous support for them. So it's also fully anonymous, and basically gives the support that people need sometimes without having to say who they are or get exposed.
Amazing. Yeah, I think this is, really wonderful. For somebody who may not know any other gay people, struggles to come to terms with their identity, coming to your group is really, eye-opening as well, I think. I guess what I want to ask is, when you have an environment like that, or society where, as I look the most favorable at the community, it's quite hard to start a group like this. So how do you make sure that the name is out, that people that need help know where to go and who to speak to?
I think when we started the group as 5 people in total, and it was pretty much telling our friends, whether that's like the gay cliche. It was way before Grindr, so the way that when you would meet people on the internet, or you would meet out in parties, and then would basically start talking about like, hey, we have this support group, why don't you join? But then later we started also arranging our own monthly party, which was like a Palestinian Oriental gay line every month in Jaffa, next to Tel Aviv. So people will just come there and have like a fun evening party, DJ music, etc., and start gathering and giving the people the chance to register as members of the organization. Later on, of course, we had also our website. We started also working on a few initiatives with some of the artists in Palestine. So some of the artists actually started working on some songs that promote diversity and talk about sexuality in a way that, you know, it's very questioning to the society itself, and kind of breaking the boundaries. So that is kind of when our breakthrough came, and that is when basically, you know, internet, YouTube, etc., people started knowing who we are. I think also because of the work that we did in schools, awareness raised a lot. I think maybe one of the things that are important about the story of how I basically, you know, ended up here in the UK. All of that work was, for me, not something that my parents knew of. It was all a separate life. They had no clue. They were not supportive. They were pretty much against everything that has to do with me being gay. And at some point, I kind of refused to stay living under that you know, mantle of, oh no, I'm not gay, I'm straight, and it's all right. But you know, it's a decision that you need to make, and most people in my culture don't do that decision or don't make that decision because of the financial ties to your family. I kind of went away from that and decided to take my life in my own hands and just pave the path for myself on my own. So that is basically when I decided to leave home and I moved to Sweden and started a whole new life on my own. And still was involved, but from far. In that time, my work also kind of changed a little bit with the organization, because we had lots of people that were in the need of asylum. I was lucky enough to not need one, but people who need asylum, who need help when they leave their homes. So I went more into work towards that and started helping people from the community that come from the Middle East, and basically they moved to Europe because of their sexual orientation, to help them get their life started the same way I have started my life.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate at least partly to that story. You know, for me, for example, you know, I still haven't told my dad, and I'm a fully functioning adult. So, you know, we can all relate to a bit of part of that. And it's definitely tough to leave everything that you know behind to kind of and relocate across the world, really. It's not just a different country. And also making sure that you don't lose yourself in that process. You know, it's very hard. So how would you kind of try and remind yourself that through this very difficult period, it is all worth it in the end and things are going to get better? Because it is very, very difficult to stay, again, true to yourself, because you can't just give up and go back, you know. So yeah, how do you kind of remind yourself?
I think for me, for those of you who read the article, moving to Sweden wasn't easy. I was a homeless person for a while. And it was tough. It was tough. You don't know what to do with your life. I was 19 years old. Sorry, no, I was 23 years old. 19 years old, that's a different story. I was 23 years old, and I basically, you know, it was being in a different country and pretty much living on the streets. You actually, it's either you give up or you take yourself in your hands. For me, it was the fact that I knew that what we were doing back home meant a lot to many people, that I had to fight for myself and build a life that in some way, although it's been about 13 years, I have not been in touch with my family for 13 years, but I know that they know that, you know, today I am a successful person. And that is the most important message I want them to know, that regardless of who I am still a successful person, and I could path my way through life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a true testament to your character. So I think I want to kind of move our conversation towards kind of corporate environment. And, in Sweden, you joined a payments company and kind of spent a bit of time there. So as you kind of progress through the company, you meet different people, different levels of seniority. Can you kind of talk about whether people changed their attitudes towards you when maybe they found out you were gay?
I think that it takes time to gain confidence, especially to be true to yourself and who you are. Funny enough, my first job was not in payments. I used to work for Christian Dior. But yes, I was working in a store for Christian Dior, and that was kind of my first job. And there it was different because I was in a place where it was easy because everyone else I worked with was gay. So I did not have problems with acceptance. At that point, after getting into society in Sweden and fully, mastering the language, I decided it's time for me to find actually a job that I can do what I want to do in life, and started working in payments. I started as a consultant, and in the beginning, it was pretty difficult because the company I worked for was very traditional, and I was among the youngest people in the company. Everyone else was above 50. So I was pretty much in the group where like, oh, he's a kid, pretty much. But I think that acceptance was still there. And people, regardless of who you are or what your, sexual orientation, people were open to listen and get to know you. And it's a very difficult thing to do in Sweden. People are not very open. So it takes time to gain that trust and build those friendships. But in terms of openness, the society, especially because I was in Stockholm, the society is very open, and people kind of, take you with open arms because of the fact that they also went through similar, story of how acceptance became to be in Sweden, similar to the UK, similar to other countries. For me, it was also partially because of the fact that most of the people that I socialized with in my company were people who, in the beginning, I kind of did not, make the connection, but people who have someone who is gay in the family, or their kid, or their sister, or their brother, or one of their closest friends is. So they kind of, tried to tell me that it's okay, and it's okay to be yourself. But I didn't speak about it very openly in the beginning.
I think it's very interesting that even though maybe the people that you worked with in Sweden are very different to you, the different backgrounds, different upbringings, but still in a weird way, there was that common ground of relationships or friends that they had. So as an employer, building a diverse workforce is quite important, right? Even though you want to make sure that the person you're, for example, hiring for the role is the best person, but also you want to make sure that you have people from different backgrounds, because that's how ideas flow the best. At checkout, right? So here we have the Pride community. It's the second community to be introduced amongst many others. And also our partnership with My G Work Network that kind of lists all of our job profiles on the website to give people an opportunity to see what it's like to be a member of the community I work for checkout. So for you, kind of looking at the partnerships and the communities and being a leader yourself, what do you think are some of the key benefits of having these partnerships to kind of build a diverse workforce?
Yeah, so for me, is when I look specifically at my G work, following the article, my network kind of boomed, and people were very positive about the article, but also were very interested in learning more about checkout and getting involved in checkout, either by do you guys have offices out here, and sometimes in weird places, but mostly in the US actually, which is very interesting to see that the majority of the people on the platform are actually from the US, but also around the fact that people would share their story, and it's like, oh, I work for this company in the financial services sector, but I can't talk about myself and I don't know how to tackle that. Or I don't know how to basically promote diversity internally, what to do. So started having lots of meaningful conversations with people on the platform, and some of them, turned like to be more networking around how can I help you, bring more awareness and diversity into your organization. And some of them actually turned into friendships, which is super nice. So
Yeah,
I got both sides of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're looking for talent yourself, and when you're interviewing candidates and they start talking about their involvement in the community, does that add value to kind of the role itself? And also, have you kind of, when you were interviewing for your roles, have you mentioned your involvement in the community as well?
Yeah, I think that any involvement in any community, regardless of which community it is important. We are all fortunate enough to be able to give back to the communities that we belong to, that we came from. And for me, that's a very important value in myself, also in the people that I want to work with, is what do you give back to the community that gave you or made you who you are today. If we talk about the actual hiring, when I hire, I think for me, it's very important to talk about diversity. It's very important to have that mixture of cultures and people around you in the team, but also make sure that people are open about who they are. They can always say what they think, and that is something that I always promote with my team. My team and I were always very candid with each other. I'm known for being very direct, and people are as equally as direct back to me, because for me that's a very important thing to do with my hires.
Yeah, and I think that really much aligns to our checkout values. Work as a team, open, candid communication, and also humility, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. So I think what I want to move on next is kind of talk about kind of touching back on societies that may be kind of less favorable towards the community. And we have locations all over the world, and as the business will continue to grow, we will also continue to expand in different locations. So what is your kind of local suggestion, how we can make sure that employees, regardless where they are, feel welcomed and feel safe and feel comfortable being who they are?
I think I'll kind of refrain from using the term of cultural fit, but I think that for me, it's one of the things that us as a company, Checkout, what we can do is basically make sure that our employees, our colleagues, our peers, they all have a safe environment to go to at work that is inclusive, open, understanding, and that they can be who they are without fear, regardless if that country accepts LGBTQ people or not, or the culture, the religion. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, the way I see work is that we are individuals and we are there to be who we are anywhere else. Now, there is a lot of things that we can do in terms of promoting the community and having sessions and discussions, workshops, etc. There is unfortunately little we can do when it comes to the law, and basically trying to change laws and bring that impact. There is something that we with the little that we do, and that is around giving our employees that safe space. That is a word that travels around, and I think governments and lawmakers in those countries know about this, but I don't think that that is a bad thing. It's something that helps us promote openness. You can see that in the UAE, because there's a series of laws that were introduced recently that are all very favorable for westernized, let's call it, lifestyle that was not accepted before. But that's also because of the fact that that specific country is 90% expats. And if you want to keep them there and you want to keep the talent, you need to also welcome their lifestyle into your own country.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, as businesses grow and change, countries also grow and change. And it's all about the moving society. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a long-term project. So it's good to see change and we welcome change. What I want to kind of touch on is, again, as the business will continue to grow, landscape changes. So things that we would consider acceptable will also change. So how can checkout kind of stay with that curve and making sure that they're allied today, tomorrow, and the day after?
I think it's all about the people and who we are and who we hire and what kind of people and talent we bring in. That is one. I think that the second thing is around always promoting, the different communities and societies that we have within the company. Keep doing that work. That is very important. And then I think that for me, especially because of checkout, today I'm really not afraid to say who I am or who I was or my life story. And I think that people should always think that there is always place for us anywhere if we only want to be true to ourselves and share who we are. If you keep hiding, you can't really be true to yourself either, because you're basically not giving out your reality to the others. Now, with checkout specifically, I think that the work that we have in the community here is very important. I see checkout as family, and I think that also translates into the relationships that I have with people in the company. Specifically, most of my friends in London are from checkout. These are the people I hang out with. I think for a radius of half a mile from my house, I have 60 people from checkout living around me. So there is always someone around. And pretty much as close as the neighbor next door. So yeah, it's that kind of feeling of that you belong and people actually embrace you for who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes us all want to work for a company like that, and helps the company as well to have a good image, because we speak to people outside of checkout. You, for example, have regular meetings with different clients from all sorts of jurisdictions. So in terms of the clients, so when you kind of deal with external clients, how have you observed their view of checkout is, and the kind of the policies and what we have in place? Does that help to win over business?
I think there's a funny story. It's not really related to the LGBTQ community, but it's related to one of the things that we do at checkout that many companies don't have. And the story goes, we were talking to one of our today largest merchants, New Day, and the talk was around how the office is, and what do we have in terms of how do we basically incentivize people to come back to work, and also what is like the ratio between different cultures and people. And then the conversation went around how open checkout is, and the relationships that we have with people here, because also the fact that in this specific one, Guillaume was personally involved. But then we're talking about the fact that we can bring dogs to the office. And I think I received like 10 CVs after that because they are not allowed to bring their dogs to the office. But that is kind of one of the funny stories that we had around talking about the values of checkout and the fact that you should be feeling at home as well as at work. In many conversations, I think that one of the good ones was with Facebook, with Novi. They basically, I in the beginning, I couldn't shut up talking about my husband. So they actually, most of them met my husband and kind of, grew that relationship to be a bit more personal than just, they are not my client only, but they actually know my family now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that is a very nice note, I think, to end our conversation. So thank you very much, Adel. Can we just have a little... We've got about 10 minutes left. So maybe if there are any questions, any comments, suggestions, we've got mics going around, people on Zoom as well, any questions in the chat. And yeah, maybe we can discuss those. Anybody would like to go first? No? Yeah, Omar?
Thanks for the talk. It was really interesting to hear about a lot of the things that you were doing. You talked about some of your motivations for moving, both to Sweden, well, I suppose to Sweden first and foremost, and a lot of the great things you're doing with the foundation. What would you, it sounds very inspirational. And what I'm trying to get at is what inspires you? Like what inspired you want to move out, but to continue this work?
For me, it was to move out. The first thing that was really important for me is the fact that I wanted to be free. And I wanted to be free. I wanted to be able to control my own destiny. And the inspiration came from another friend who did a similar move. Better circumstances, but still a similar move. Leaving everything behind is not easy. Especially, when you come to a new country, to a new culture, learning a new language, you are pretty much a nobody that no one knows. You have no history for those people. They have no clue who you are. And basically they need to get to know you. And it's at that point where you're like, okay, I was somebody back home and I'm still somebody here. So I'm just gonna, fight for that right to show people that I actually am someone who can be successful, who can bring value to society without having to be labeled as, unfortunately in the recent years, when you talk about immigrants, you talk about immigrants in a negative connotation. And that is just not what I want to promote.
Anybody else? No? Tom?
Well, thanks so much, Adel, for taking us through all that. Obviously, we started talking about your charity that you created. And I was wondering, kind of then and now, are there any other, charities in the LGBTQI space, or just generally that kind of inspire you, that you look to for, advice, guidance when you were kind of setting up and running it?
I think the landscape kind of changed a lot in the past 13 years since I left Palestine. Many things happened. We have today a few smaller organizations in the region, and I think that one of them now is actually taking what we were doing back then, but going really big on confrontation. It's like the Gen Z energy of, you guys were doing it in a very subtle way. We're just going confrontational. So that is one of the organizations in Palestine that really inspires me by the work that they do, is that they basically promote the message of, we're here whether you like it or not, and you're going to like it. And that is a strong message for me, because growing up, I didn't have that as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I think if there aren't any questions, any on Zoom? No? Perfect. Well, I think, yeah.
One's just dropped.
Oh.
It's from Pierre. Should I read it out? We often talk about making the general society more inclusive to the LGBTQ+ community. What can we do to make the community itself more inclusive as it covers a wide variety of profiles? Interesting.
I think that for me, no prejudice. Everyone is, everyone has a history, everyone comes with a baggage, everyone comes with a story, and everyone is equal at the end of the day. So for me, it was never like, specifically about diversity when it comes specifically to the LGBTQ community. I think that is something that you deploy in everything that you do in life. And if we talk about, the different communities that we have in general, we have communities for pretty much everything. I think that people need to how you call it, deeply understand the meaning of what it means to be human first and foremost. And at that point, you pretty much get over that and you include everyone.
Amazing. Well, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, a quick reminder, drinks, snacks are going to be served now. So please help yourselves and join us for a social. Amazing.